Ever feel like retail media keeps you up at night? You're not alone. Today we're diving into what actually scares brand leaders about this rapidly evolving space. From the pressure of allocating budgets across an ever-growing landscape of retail networks, to the complexity that makes it impossible for any one person to master it all, and finally to the fascinating game theory of watching inexperienced players drive up costs. We're going to get real about the challenges that make retail media professionals nervous. In this episode, I called up some of my brand side retail media friends to talk about what keeps them up at night. Let's dive in. Good morning and welcome to the Retail Media Breakfast Club. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern, I bring you candid and real discussions in the world of retail media and marketplaces in just 10 minutes. So bring your own cup of coffee and we'll get smarter about retail media together. Now let's hear from Dudzinski, independent Amazon consultant and ex-Kind Snacks.
Well, retail media is not too scary, but we have seen explosive growth in this space. And as each retailer brings on these platforms, it feels like a new one is each week. It really puts a lot of immense pressure on brand budgets. And brands don't have just buckets of money just lying around. And with all the increased competition for these dollars, some of these buckets are getting taken some hits. What I've seen is a lot of trade spend being a common way to fund some of these investments. And the sustainability of that as this explodes and grows even further is really something that is going to be really tough to sustain.
And now let's hear from Alicia Ponzani, e-commerce manager at Premier Nutrition.
This is a great question. I think when you hear the word scares, you're like, oh my gosh, what keeps me up at night? And as someone working on the brand side of the business, what scares me the most is just how fast and how complex retail media networks have grown and become, especially over the past year or so. And the question I'm always asking myself is, how do I navigate this growing and fragmented market? Because now there's, I believe, over like 600 networks around retail media. And there really is this fear of like missing out on the right opportunities. Like you can't spend all your time reaching all of them. So you really need to prioritize. And it's like, how do my agencies and I manage this complexity? How do we kind of gain the right level of access and insights from the data? And, it's not a one person job. It's very cross-functional. So that's kind of like keeping me up is like just how big and complex the landscape is. So it's helpful to have people like you and other people in the industry to kind of break that down. But I think also on the flip side of what scares me is what excites me is that there is this opportunity to lean into technology to kind of help solve for that. And I think on the brand side too, it's really helping us focus on what's actually important and what do we need to prioritize in order to make sure we are navigating this network as well as we can and really unlocking the best opportunities given that there are so many choices now.
And now let's hear from Brea Keating, Director of E-commerce at Wilton.
So retail media honestly shouldn't be scary to anyone. There are some challenges within the industry, but from an investment standpoint, you are playing a game. And the earlier that you realize that you're playing a game, the better off you'll be. There are players in the space that are going to get better over time and the game will evolve. And as long as you are keeping on pace with watching the industry and learning how to gain your own unique skills, retail media overall shouldn't be a scary prospect. I will say that there are a couple things that are concerning about brands moving into higher and higher retail media investments. So number one, inexperienced players at the table. So when you have uneducated retail media buyers, particularly when they're your competition, they can really muck up the investment playing field. And so similar to a newbie at a poker table, any new investors can drive the prices up or change the focus, and it'll actually screw up the game for everyone at the table. And so it's really important to understand who you're playing against and that the retailer is your partner in your category growth, but that any of your competition could make or break your profitability.
Well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Retail Media Breakfast Club. We meet here every day at 6 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to subscribe and get your daily dose of insights, trends, and hot takes in the world of retail media and marketplaces.